Rich lady refuses black nurse's help. Seconds later, she collapses. In the gleaming lobby of a private hospital, a wealthy woman dressed head to toe in designer clothes storms past the reception desk. Her diamond necklace glitters under the lights as she looks down with contempt at the black nurse who steps forward to guide her. With a dismissive wave, she snarls, refusing even the nurse's touch. But fate has its own way of humbling arrogance. Only moments later, the same woman's proud posture crumbles, her knees buckle, her voice trembles, and the very hands she rejected are the ones reaching to save her life. Margaret Donovan was a name whispered with awe in high society circles. She was known for her wealth, her elegance, and her ability to command every room she entered. At 52, she carried herself like royalty. But beneath the polished exterior was an arrogance that left many wounded in her path. That afternoon, Margaret entered St. Catherine's private hospital for a routine checkup. Everything about the hospital screamed exclusivity, from the marble floors to the fresh lilies in every vase. It was where the elite came, not only to heal, but to be seen. At the nurses' station stood Angela Brooks, a 34-year-old black nurse with years of experience. She had trained at one of the country's top medical schools and had spent her career in both emergency wards and specialized care. Colleagues admired her compassion. Patients trusted her skill. Yet in Margaret's eyes, Angela was nothing more than staff. Angela smiled warmly as Margaret approached, offering to guide her to the examination wing. But instead of gratitude, Margaret recoiled, her eyes narrowing as if Angela's very presence was offensive. "I'll wait for someone else," she snapped. The receptionist's face burned with embarrassment. But Angela, used to such slights, simply nodded and stepped back. No one knew in that moment how quickly roles would reverse. Margaret's day had been meticulously planned. She was scheduled for a battery of cardiovascular tests, and though she outwardly boasted about her health, her doctor had noted rising concerns. But Margaret had little patience for rules. She demanded that appointments run on her schedule, that staff treat her like a queen, and that no inexperienced nurse so much as touch her. Angela, meanwhile, returned to her duties, moving gracefully from patient to patient. She didn't take Margaret's rejection personally. She had seen it before. Sometimes it was racism, sometimes classism, sometimes both. Angela reminded herself daily why she was there, not for approval, but for lives. Hours passed, and Margaret sat in her private suite scrolling through her phone, irritated at the smallest delays. She complained about the air conditioning being too cold, the water being too warm, even the magazines not being fresh enough. Her arrogance filled the room like perfume, stifling everyone around her. Then it happened. At first it was subtle, a tightness in her chest. She brushed it off, adjusting her pearl necklace. Then came the shortness of breath, the cold sweat. She reached for her phone, but her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her vision blurred, the letters on the screen dissolving into meaningless shapes. Her body betrayed her pride. Margaret collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air. Panic filled her eyes as she realized she was utterly powerless. The call for help echoed down the hall. Doctors rushed, but the closest trained professional was Angela. Without hesitation, Angela sprinted to the suite. She knelt beside Margaret, checking her pulse, her breathing, her color. Margaret tried to resist even now, her pride flickering in a weak shake of her head. But Angela ignored it. This wasn't about race, wealth, or ego. This was about saving a life. Angela worked with precision. She cleared Margaret's airway, stabilized her position, and called for immediate transport. To the critical ward, her calm voice gave instructions to the medical team while her steady hands worked tirelessly. Margaret's world was slipping away. Through half-closed eyes, she saw Angela's determined face hovering above her. The same hands she had rejected now pressed rhythmically against her chest, pumping life back into her failing heart. Every compression was a strike against arrogance, every breath of oxygen a reminder of shared humanity. The room spun, monitors beeped, and Margaret's mind replayed the cruel dismissal she had given Angela earlier. Shame cut deeper than fear. In that moment, her wealth meant nothing. Her diamonds were worthless, her status invisible. All that stood between her and death was the nurse she had deemed unworthy. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, Margaret's breathing steadied. The oxygen mask secured, IV fluids flowing, her body stabilized. A hush fell over the room. Doctors nodded, staff whispered their relief. Angela didn't wait for thanks. She simply adjusted the blanket over Margaret, checked her monitors one last time, and stepped back into the hallway. Her heart rate was steady, but not from the emergency. It was from years of practice, years of being overlooked, yet rising above it every single time. When Margaret awoke hours later, her arrogance had been replaced with a quiet humility. The doctor explained how close she had been to a fatal collapse, and how Angela Brooks was the one who had saved her. The weight of shame pressed heavily on Margaret's chest. For the first time, she truly saw Angela, not as staff, not as someone beneath her, but as a professional, a lifesaver, a woman of strength and grace. Angela entered the room to check her vitals. Their eyes met. Margaret opened her mouth, perhaps to apologize, perhaps to thank her. But Angela only smiled softly, adjusted the IV line, and said, "Rest. You're safe now." Then she walked out, leaving Margaret with her thoughts. For the rest of her recovery, Margaret couldn't escape the truth. The very person she dismissed had saved her life. The diamonds she wore couldn't protect her. The privilege she flaunted couldn't heal her. In the end, it was compassion from someone she had disrespected that gave her a second chance at life. And that is the irony of arrogance. When life humbles us, it's often those we overlook who become our greatest salvation. Racism blinds us, pride weakens us, and sometimes the greatest strength comes from those the world tries to push aside. So ask yourself, when life brings you to your knees, will you have already turned away the very hands that could save you?